My wife begged me to have a baby for years. Now that I got her pregnant, she wants a divorce and already signed a lease alone. I'm a 34-year-old man, and up until a few weeks ago, I thought I had built the life I'd always dreamed of. I had a wife, Emma, who I adored. We'd been together for 9 years, married for 5. We had a small but cozy apartment in Lyon, both working full-time jobs, nothing extravagant, but enough to feel stable. We traveled sometimes, saved up for our own house, and most importantly, we had a long-standing plan, have a child together. Except this child, this idea of a child, wasn't just mine. It was Emma's obsession. She'd been talking about becoming a mother since before we got engaged. She wanted to be a young mom, and for years, it was me holding back. Not because I didn't want children, but because I wanted to wait until we had a bit more savings, more time, less stress. Emma was patient at first, then persistent, and eventually, she broke down crying one night and said, "I feel like you're robbing me of something sacred." That hit hard, so I changed my mind. We tried for a baby. I did everything right. Vitamins, healthier lifestyle, tracking cycles, everything. And 2 months ago, we got the positive test. I was terrified and thrilled. She was silent. I'll never forget the moment I walked into the kitchen with the test still in my hand, grinning like an idiot, and she was just staring at the sink, frozen, like it wasn't real. At first, I thought it was shock, then maybe hormones. But the days passed, and instead of that dreamy glow I always imagined, Emma got colder, distant. She slept in the living room more and more, canceled our house hunting appointments, stopped talking about baby names. I was the only one who seemed happy. Until last week, she sat me down. Not with tears, not with guilt, just a calm, rehearsed tone like a lawyer. "I'm moving out next month," she said. "I found a place near my job. I've signed the lease already. I want a divorce." I honestly thought she was joking. I waited for the punchline, the laugh, anything. But she just looked at me, like she was talking to a stranger. "You're pregnant," I said. "We're having a baby." "Why now?" Her answer: "Because I realized I don't want this life with you anymore. I needed to be pregnant before I could move on." That exact sentence broke something in me. What does that even mean? I needed to be pregnant before I could move on. I couldn't sleep for days. I kept replaying it in my head, wondering if I'd misunderstood. But I hadn't. She was gone. Not physically, not yet, but emotionally, completely. She'd already packed half her stuff. I found the lease on her desk. She was planning this. And here's the worst part. She acts like I'm the one who's overreacting. Like I should just accept it. Like we're just two adults, taking different paths. Except this path includes a child I still want. A child she begged for. And now, I'm starting to question everything. What if this was her plan all along? What if the baby was never about us, but about her escaping me? The first thing I did after Emma dropped the bomb was call my brother. Mark's my older brother by 5 years, and he's been through a nasty divorce himself. If anyone could help me understand what was happening, it was him. He picked up right away, and when I told him what Emma had said, calmly announcing she was leaving while pregnant, he didn't even react the way I expected. No shock, no outrage, just a long pause, and then, "Do you think it's yours?" I felt like someone had punched me in the throat. It had never occurred to me to question that. I'd never had a reason to. Emma wasn't like that, or at least, I thought she wasn't. We had trust, or I thought we did. I spent the next few hours spiraling. Every late meeting, every weekend she said she wanted space. Every time she locked herself in the bathroom with her phone. Suddenly, they weren't just little quirks or signs of stress. They were potential flags. Red ones. I confronted her that night. I asked her, calmly at first, if there was someone else. She didn't deny it. She didn't admit it, either. She just said, "You don't want to go down that road." What the hell does that even mean? I asked again, directly this time, "Is the baby mine?" She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I don't think you want to know the answer to that." That sentence broke me. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was a weapon. A mind game. And suddenly, I realized, Emma didn't just fall out of love with me. She was playing me. I locked myself in our bedroom that night and cried for the first time in years. Not out of sadness, out of rage. The next morning, I called my friend Paul. He works at a private clinic. Asked if there's a way to do a prenatal paternity test. He said it's possible, but Emma would need to agree. I asked her the same day. She smiled, and then she said, "You want to stab a needle into my womb just because your ego is bruised. You're disgusting." I felt cornered. I told her I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just needed to know what I was dealing with. Her mood shifted instantly. She threw her phone across the room and screamed that I was trying to control her, that I was punishing her for making her own choices. I'm not proud of what I said next. I told her she used me, that she got what she wanted and now she was discarding me like trash. That if this was her plan from the start, then she's the coldest person I've ever known. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just packed another box and said, if you really think that, then maybe this is all for the best. Since then, we've barely spoken. She's still living here, but it feels like I'm cohabiting with a stranger. A cold, calculated, manipulative stranger. And me. I'm stuck in limbo. I don't know if I'm becoming a father, or if I'm just the idiot who paid for someone else's pregnancy. And worse, I don't know if I'll ever get the truth. But I swear on everything, if she thinks she's walking away from this clean, she has no idea who she's dealing with. Not anymore. I'm not playing nice anymore. I started investigating the very next day, not in a crazy, paranoid way, but methodically. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me into thinking I was the bad guy, or worse, the fool. I had to know. For my sanity. For the baby, if it was even mine. For the future I still stupidly hoped I could repair. First, I checked our shared laptop. Emma barely used it these past few months. She was always on her phone. But I dug through the browser history, email logins, even downloaded some recovery software to check deleted files. Nothing obvious. Then I remembered, 2 months ago, Emma had lost her phone. She was frantic for 2 days until she got a new one. I had helped her set it up. I remembered syncing her photos to our shared Google account by accident. I checked that Google account, and I found everything. Not photos of her with another man. No, Emma was smarter than that. But messages, chat screenshots, a folder called Ref, with PDFs of lease contracts, pregnancy tracking plans, conversations about co-parenting options. Co-parenting options. With someone else's name mentioned repeatedly, Julian. Julian. I scrolled deeper. The earliest message in that folder dated back to 9 months ago, long before we even agreed to start trying for a baby. One file caught my eye. It was a screenshot of an email draft addressed to Julian. The subject line read, "Our timeline." The body started with, "Once I'm pregnant, I'll move out before the 2nd trimester. He'll never know." I stared at that line for what felt like an hour. She planned this. She planned to get pregnant and leave me. She used me like a sperm donor, a stability blanket until her real life with this Julian could begin. My hands were shaking. I took screenshots, backed everything up. And then, I don't know what came over me. I confronted her. I waited until she came back from work. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, "Who's Julian?" She froze mid-step. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. But I could see it. That millisecond of panic. "You went through my things. Answer me." She stayed silent. I found the email. The one where you talk about moving out before the 2nd trimester. The one where you said I'd never know. She sat down slowly at the edge of the couch, hands on her knees, like a confession was coming, like she was preparing herself to finally tell me everything. And then she said, "I was scared. Julian and I, look, we were never physical, not while I was with you. But I started confiding in him. It became emotional. I realized I wanted something else. Someone else. I couldn't face you with it, so yes, I planned to leave. And the baby." Her silence was louder than any scream. I asked again, "Is it mine?" And again, no answer. Just that same cold, tired stare. That night, I packed a bag and slept at Mark's place. Not because I was giving up, but because I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to let her win. If she thought she could manipulate me, take my money, use my name on that birth certificate, she had no idea what was coming. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. This was war. And I was going to play it smart. Starting with a lawyer. The lawyer's office was quiet, sterile, and smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner. I sat across from a woman named Camille, late for 0S. Sharp voice, sharper eyes. She didn't waste time with small talk. She simply asked, "What do you want from this?" I told her everything. From the years of Emma begging for a child to her cold detachment after getting pregnant. From the, "I'm leaving," speech to the discovery of the folder labeled, Ref. From the email with the words, "He'll never know." Camille listened in silence, nodding occasionally, taking notes. When I mentioned the baby, how Emma was pregnant and I no longer even knew if it was mine, Camille closed her folder and looked at me directly. "If she refuses the paternity test now, you'll have to wait until after the birth. But the moment that baby is born, you need to act fast. If she registers the child without you, without your name, it'll be 10 times harder to fight for any rights or protections." Protections. That word hit me hard. I had gone from dreaming about fatherhood to needing protection from the mother of my child. Camille explained everything I could do legally: block her from moving to FAR, establish a legal petition for paternity, document all evidence of emotional manipulation, and most importantly, prepare for custody, whether the child was mine or not. Because, she said, if the baby is yours and she's been planning to disappear with it, that's parental alienation. If it's not yours, and she knowingly led you on, that can be used to reduce any financial claims she might try to make. Either way, we prepare for both. I left her office feeling sick. This wasn't a family falling apart anymore. This was strategy. This was positioning. This was court. Back at Mark's place, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, wondering if Emma had texted, called, anything. But it was radio silence. Mark came into the living room around 2 a.m., sat beside me, and said, "You look like a ghost, man." I didn't know how to answer. I just showed him the screenshots again, especially the one with the sentence about moving out before the second trimester. Mark took a long breath and muttered, "She's been planning this for nearly a year." He was right. It was all there, like a blueprint, a trap, and I walked straight into it. The next morning, I went back to the apartment when I knew she'd be at work. I wasn't going to destroy anything. I just needed more evidence, something solid that proved intent. I started with her desk, then her nightstand. That's where I found a second phone. It was hidden under a stack of scarves. Not her usual iPhone. This was an older Android, cracked screen, low battery. I plugged it in, hands shaking. The moment it turned on, my stomach dropped. There were dozens of messages from Julian, voice notes, photos of ultrasound she had sent him, screenshots of our old texts, her telling him when I was most vulnerable, her calling me in a VE for thinking she still loved me, and one audio clip that made my skin crawl. She was laughing, genuinely laughing, and then said, "He still thinks this baby is his." I almost feel bad. Almost. That broke me. I sat on the floor, phone in my hands, not knowing whether to scream or throw up. The woman I had built a life with, fought for, cried with, she was mocking me behind my back, treating me like some pathetic placeholder while she planned a life with someone else. I took that phone, copied everything, backed it up to multiple drives, even uploaded the worst clips to an encrypted cloud. I called Camille immediately. She told me, "This changes everything." Now we weren't just talking about betrayal. We were talking about fraud, about intentional deception, about using me as a legal shield to get pregnant, and then discarding me like a tool. From that moment, I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for the truth, for my future, for that unborn child who might grow up in a web of lies if I stayed silent. Emma had declared war the moment she smiled and said, "You don't want to know." Now, she was going to find out exactly who I become when someone rips my world apart. And I swear, I was done playing nice. The day I confronted Emma again was the first time I truly felt nothing for her. Not love, not heartbreak, not even anger. Just this cold, mechanical focus, like I was putting on armor. I had the backup drive in my pocket. I had everything. The screenshots, the audio clip of her laughing, the messages to Julian, the proof that she had plotted this whole thing, while still crawling into bed next to me, every night. She walked through the door around 7 p.m., keys jingling, shopping bag in hand like everything was normal. I watched her from the living room, sitting in silence. She clocked me instantly. Her smile faded. "What?" she said. Flat. No emotion. I stood up slowly. No shouting. No drama. I just pulled the phone out of my pocket and placed it on the table between us. "Yours?" I asked. Her eyes didn't even flinch. "Where did you get that?" "You didn't hide it well," I said. "And you really shouldn't have used the same lock code." She stared at me for a long second. Then, slowly, she sat down and crossed her arms. "You went through my things again." I almost laughed. That's what she focused on. "No," I said. "I uncovered the truth you've been hiding for almost a year. And now I know everything. Julian, the planning, the messages, the fake smiles, the lies. And," I paused, leaning forward, "your little audio recording. That was a nice touch." Her lips parted for a second, maybe to deny it, maybe to twist it, but I think even she realized it was useless now. So she shifted gears. "Fine," she said. "You know. So what? You gonna cry? You gonna sue me? You want me to say I'm a monster? Go ahead. But don't pretend like you didn't feel it coming. We were dead for years. You wanted a baby, Emma. I wanted a life." She shot back. "A life that didn't feel like a treadmill with no end. A life where I was seen." Julian made me feel alive again. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palm. "And you needed to trap me with a fake pregnancy to get there." "It's not fake," she said. "The pregnancy is real. And the baby's probably yours." "Probably?" I felt my chest tighten. That one word felt like a slap. I tried to breathe through it. "You used me," I said. "You made me believe this was something we were building together. You cried. You begged. And all along, it was a game to you." She looked away. "I didn't think you'd take it so hard," she whispered. "I thought you'd be relieved." You always looked so tired. My vision blurred, not from tears, from disbelief. She was still trying to spin this like I was the one who didn't belong, like she'd done me a favor by blowing our marriage up with a nuclear bomb. You're unbelievable, I said. You don't even understand what you've done. I've done what I needed to survive. No, Emma, you did what you needed to destroy me. I walked out after that. Back to Mark's. I handed Camille everything. She didn't even hide her reaction this time. She'll regret this, she said. But for now, we use it. We filed an emergency petition for paternity establishment and custody protections, even before the birth. It wouldn't prevent the divorce, but it could give me legal standing the moment the baby arrives. It also meant she couldn't disappear with the child if it turned out to be mine. I also asked Camille what it would take to sue Emma for emotional and financial fraud. She told me the bar was high, but if we could prove she had never intended to parent with me, and that I made decisions based on false pretenses, we might have a case, at least enough to fight any financial claims she tries to make. I wasn't sure if I'd go that far, but having that power, even as an option, felt like breathing again after drowning. The weeks that followed were surreal. Emma moved out into her new apartment, just like she'd planned. She didn't tell her parents the truth. They still thought I was the one who couldn't handle the pressure. She even started posting soft little Instagram stories of her nesting, putting together a crib, smiling with her hand on her belly. The caption said, "New beginnings. Just me and baby, stronger than ever." I stared at that photo for a full minute, feeling this cold rage rise in my gut. She wanted to play the victim, to erase me, to turn our unborn child into a fresh start with her lies. But I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story. Not this time. Not after what she did. I didn't hear from her again until the 8th month of her pregnancy. Not a call. Not a text. Not a single update. I had to rely on her social media stories, carefully curated and nauseatingly sweet. She looked happy, radiant even, always alone, or holding hands with some anonymous arm she never tagged. But it wasn't mine. And it sure as hell wasn't Julian's either. At least, not publicly. She wanted everyone to believe she was some brave single mom, abandoned by her cold, unsupportive husband. She played it perfectly. Even some of our mutual friends started texting me with vague messages like, "I hope you both find peace," or, "You should reach out before it's too late." Too late for what? To be gaslit again. But what made my blood run cold was when I received a letter from her lawyer. It was a formal request. Emma wanted to have full parental authority from the day the child was born. Full authority. No shared custody. No recognition. No name on the birth certificate. The letter was polite, clinical. It read like they were doing me a favor, given the emotional tension between the parties. Ms. Delorme believes it is in the best interest of the child to limit unnecessary conflict and formalize sole custody under her name. I remember holding the letter in my hands and shaking. She wasn't just walking away from me. She was trying to erase me from the equation entirely. And she was doing it before the baby was even born. I called Camille immediately. "We already filed," she said. "That document means nothing. Let her play her games. The judge will see right through it once we submit the full package." Still, I couldn't eat for days. I kept picturing this future where my child grows up never knowing who I am, thinking some other man is their father. Or worse, thinking I was the one who abandoned them. The tipping point came 2 weeks before her due date. Julian showed up at my workplace. I work in a logistics hub, not the kind of place you expect confrontations. But that day, round noon, someone told me a guy was waiting at reception. Tall, mid-30s, hair slicked back like he'd walked off the set of a low-budget soap opera. I didn't recognize him until he said, "We should talk, man to man." I just stared at him. "You're Julian." He nodded, calm as hell, like we were old friends meeting for coffee. "I just want to clear the air," he said. "This thing with Emma, it was never meant to get this messy." I wanted to laugh or punch him, but I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, while he kept talking. "She's scared," he said. "She doesn't know what she wants. But you dragging her through court. That's cruel, man. She's pregnant." I stepped closer. "No. What's cruel is tricking someone into fatherhood and then ghosting them. What's cruel is planning a betrayal for months while still pretending to love someone. What's cruel is faking a life and then trying to delete them from their own child's existence." He raised his hands. "I'm not the enemy. You're exactly the enemy," I snapped. "And if you ever show up at my work again, I swear." He didn't let me finish. He just nodded, turned around, and walked away like some martyr. But now it was clear. Emma was panicking. Julian didn't come on his own. She sent him. She wanted me to drop the legal action. She was feeling the pressure, and that gave me energy I hadn't felt in months. I went home, gathered every last bit of evidence again, reread every legal paper, rewatched the voice note, where she laughed at my expense. I wrote a personal statement for the judge, outlining everything, How she begged for a child. How she emotionally manipulated me. How she planned my erasure with another man. The baby was coming soon, and I was ready. Not because I wanted revenge anymore. Not even because I loved her. But because if that child was mine, they deserved to know who their real father was. And if that child wasn't mine, I deserved to be free. The call came at 3:42 a.m. I was already awake. I barely slept in those last few weeks. I'd check my phone every hour, rereading the same legal documents, obsessing over timelines, next steps, what the judge might say, whether the child was mine, whether I was even ready to be a father if it came to that. But when I saw her name on the screen, I froze. Emma. It was the first time she had voluntarily called me in over a month. I let it ring once, twice. Then I picked up. Hello. Her voice was weak, broken. I'm at the hospital. I stood up before my brain even registered the words. The baby, I asked. I'm in labor. For a second, I didn't know what to say. She hadn't wanted me involved in anything. No doctor's appointments, no baby prep, no classes, no ultrasound photos. And now, at the very end, she was calling me. Why are you calling me? She was quiet for a moment. Then, barely above a whisper, because I don't know who else to call. I didn't ask questions. I threw on clothes, got in my car, and drove through the empty streets like a madman. When I arrived, she was already in a room, sweating, pale, eyes wild with pain and fear. I wasn't prepared for how small and fragile she looked. For a moment, all the hate, all the betrayal, all the fury, it blurred into something else. Something I didn't want to admit. Compassion, pity, residual love. I stood beside her as she screamed through the contractions. She didn't speak to me much, just clenched the betrayal, breathing hard. But she didn't ask me to leave either. And when the baby was born, a tiny, wrinkled girl with lungs like a siren, Emma started sobbing. Not from joy, from something deeper. Guilt maybe, or fear. The nurse asked if I wanted to cut the cord. I said yes. That moment, scissors in hand, cord between my fingers, heart in my throat, was the most surreal thing I've ever experienced. Then came the form. The nurse held it out. Father's name. I looked at Emma. She didn't say a word, just stared at the wall. I turned to the nurse. We need a paternity test first. Please list it as pending. That was the hardest sentence I've ever had to say in my life. They took the samples that day, both the baby's and mine. The results would take a few days, maybe a week. But the legal motion Camille had filed already blocked any birth certificate registration until the test came back. Emma didn't protest. She just held the baby, silently, and cried. Before I left the hospital, I walked over to her bedside one last time. She looked up at me, exhausted. Why did you come? She asked. After everything. I looked her in the eyes, and for once, I wasn't angry. I wasn't confused. I was just done, because I wanted to know who I really am, and what kind of man I choose to be, even when someone else tries to destroy me. She nodded, just once. But it said everything. I left the room, and for the first time in months, I didn't look back. Now I'm waiting for a test result that will define everything. If she's mine, I will fight for her, with everything I have. If she's not, I'll walk away and never look back. But either way, I finally feel like I've taken my life back from Emma, and I think she knows it, too. The paternity results came in exactly 6 days later. Camille called me first. I was at home, pacing like I'd been doing every day since the birth, unable to focus on work, food, anything, just waiting. When I picked up and heard her voice say, "Do you want the result over the phone?" My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, forgetting she couldn't see me. "It's yours," she said gently. "There's no doubt. You're the father." I sat down, not out of joy, not out of shock, just because my knees couldn't hold me anymore. She's mine. The child I helped create, the one I feared would be stolen from me, the one I couldn't even let myself name until now. She was mine. Camille went on about the legal next steps, how the court would now force Emma to register me on the birth certificate, how we could now move to establish official custody terms. But I barely heard her. I just sat there, silent, overwhelmed. And then I cried. Not because I was happy, not because I'd won, but because I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. I would be a father but not a husband. I would raise a daughter with a woman I could never trust again. I met Emma again at the courthouse a week later. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept since the birth. I could see the regret in her eyes, but also the same stubborn pride that had driven her to plan this whole mess in the first place. She didn't apologize. She didn't beg. She just signed the papers, registered me officially as the father, and handed over a list of proposed visitation dates. No discussion, no emotion, just legal checkboxes. I took the list and asked one question. "Do you love her?" She blinked. "What?" "The baby," I clarified. Do you love her, or was she just a means to escape? Emma didn't answer at first. Then she said something that still haunts me. I thought having a baby would fix the hole I felt inside. But all it did was make it deeper. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. We've now settled into a fragile kind of rhythm. I see my daughter twice a week, and every other weekend. Emma and I communicate only through a shared parenting app. No texts, no calls, no real words exchanged. My daughter is healthy. She sleeps a lot. She likes the sound of music and hates loud noises. She smiles sometimes when I hold her, and I try to believe those smiles are real, that they're meant for me. But it's hard to look at her and not wonder how close I came to never knowing she existed. Hard to hold her and not feel the burn of everything her mother did to me. Hard to pretend this is what fatherhood was supposed to feel like. I'm still healing, still rebuilding. I don't trust easily anymore. I don't sleep much, and I don't know if I'll ever want to be in a relationship again. But when I look at my daughter, when I see her eyes lock onto mine, even for a second, I feel something that Emma never gave me in the end. Purpose. I'll raise her with love, with honesty. I'll protect her from the lies that almost erased me from her life. But some days, I still wonder, if Emma was willing to go this far, to escape me, how far would she have gone if I hadn't fought back? And that's what keeps me up at night. I don't know what kind of woman I was married to, but I do know the kind of father I'm going to be, and I pray that someday, that will be enough. Because truthfully, I don't know how to move on from this. Not fully, not yet, maybe not ever. Follow me for more stories.